So yesterday, we spoke about inline CSS, and today we'll go through the internal and external CSS. So internal CSS. So what is the internal CSS? So internal CSS is nothing but which is limited to the visual force. So yesterday in inline CSS we used a key called style equal to a list of attributes, and we can define a number of CSS attributes there. So but the main drawback of inline CSS is there is no reusability. It is specific to the component. It is specific to each tagline. So if you wanted to apply the CSS for another tagline, the same CSS, then you have to rewrite the same. So which is nothing but inline CSS is a tag specific, and it doesn't support the reusability. So whereas in internal CSS it supports reusability, reusable the CSS in the total visual force page. So using the internal CSS we can reuse. So how can you declare the internal CSS? So you have to open a style tag. So this is a standard declaration. You should do, implement this, should understand this. Now open the style tag, and inside of the style tag use a dot. Dot is a representation for declaring the style class, and use list of CSS attributes. So this is the internal CSS. So this is the declaration for an internal CSS. So let me show you that. So you can define n number of CSS classes like this. So this is a class 1, and this class 1 has n number of CSS attributes, and in the same style tag you can define another class, and it has n number of CSS attributes. So this is a class declaration. This is a CSS class declaration. So once you declare a class, how to call this CSS classes? So yesterday in internal CSS, so we use style equal to and CSS attributes. So this is a part of inline CSS. So for inline CSS, you just use the style tag, or some HTML components allows a direct attribute as well. But whereas in internal CSS, so you have to use a key called style class. Style class equal to and your class name. Either your class name is a class 1 or class 2. So that what are the attributes you apply, what are the attributes you add in the particular class, so this particular tagline will be added to those attributes. So I will show you. So this is the theoretical part. Let's go to the technical. So even I will give you some assignments end of the session, so you can just go through them also. So yesterday I have created a smaller visual force page. So this is employee registration form. So using our inline CSS, just an inline CSS. And now I would like to implement internal CSS. So how can you do? Let's say my requirement is I would like to add the color to all the labels. So for the field labels I have taken here, I would like to add the label colors. So what you can do is in internal CSS, so you can mix both internal, external and inline CSS in a single application. So there is no limit here. So either if you wanted to use for few components, if you wanted to use inline CSS, and for few components if you want to use internal CSS, then we can use in a single application. But for example, when you have the internal CSS and inline CSS has a priority. So it takes the inline CSS because it is a tagline CSS. It has a priority. When you apply both, so if you are overriding the CSS in both inline and internal, and inline will be taken priority. So I'm going to declare an internal CSS here using a style tag. Use a style tag, and you can define a classes. So let's say dot field labels. So this is a standard class. I mean, this is a CSS class I am declaring. This is a user defined class, not the standard class. So dot field labels, and what are the label colors you would like to what are the CSS attributes? Let's say I would like to add color green, font size 15 pixels. So this is a style class. Then save it. So I have the header, and these are the field labels. So the best practice is don't leave the text like this. So just to place the text inside of output text. That's why I'm adding the output text for each labels. It is a good practice. Now, if you wanted to apply the CSS class, you can define a number of classes here. So if you want to define a number of classes like this, you can do. So this is an employee name. For the employee name, I would like to apply this class. What you can do is just to use style class equal to and your class name. Just a class name. Don't use a dot or anything. So just use the class name and use your style class. Save it. See the change. So now this label is changed to the 15 pixels of the size, and the color is a green. So in case if you want to apply the same CSS, let's say your CSS class has, your internal CSS class has 100 attributes. You don't need to write all the 100 attributes like this. So here this class has 3 CSS attributes. This particular CSS includes 3 CSS attributes, and if you wanted to define a common class, like, so this is, I would like to define one class, header, dot header. So I would like to remove all the classes, all the CSS attributes from here, and would like to place in a header tag, I mean header class. So you just copy the header and go to the tagline style class equal to and your header, so that your header still remains the same. So there is no change in the header. I just applied color blue, font size 15 pixels, and font weight bold. So these are the internal CSS. The purpose of the internal CSS is, in case if you want to recall the same CSS anywhere, let's say I would like to use the same CSS for employee city as well. You just use style class equal to and your class name. Again, you just use wherever it is needed. No need to define n number of attributes. So this CSS is reusable in the entire Visual Force page. So you can reuse these CSS classes anywhere in the entire Visual Force page. See the difference. Like this, you can define a number of CSS classes. Let's say I would like to include the image CSS. So this is my class name. So I'm going to add height 100 pixels and width also 100 pixels. So as of now I don't have the image. I don't have the image in my Visual Force page. I would like to place one image. So to place any image, let's say I would like to place a company logos. So you can choose any logo. So I would like to use this image. So in case if you wanted to display the images on Visual Force page, generally as a part of the requirement and a Visual Force page sometimes, so as a developer or as a part of the requirement, you need to show some company logos or icons or whatever it is. So So in case if you wanted to display the images, there are two ways. Either you can copy the image address. So you can just copy the image address and go to your application, and you have to use a Visual Force tag called image and value equal to and your URL. So your URL is, so this is a complete URL, so which is a server URL, so where the logo is placed. The logo name is Dell company logo.jpg. Save it. So here is a bigger image. See how bigger it is. So you can use, what you can do is you can just use your CSS class. So image CSS is your class name. So just go to the style class you have and use it, image CSS. Now your image is in 100 pixels height and 100 pixels width. In case if you wanted to reduce the size, you can do it. And I would like to display this image at the middle of this table, on top of the table. So how can you do? So this is, so I didn't apply any CSS here. What you can do is, generally you can just use a div component. Div is another HTML component, so which is a division tag, and you can apply the CSS for this division. Style equal to align center, or you can directly use align equal to center. See the difference. After the image, if you wanted to add a break line, you can just use. Now see the output. So this is an employee registration for this company. So like this, in case if you wanted to display any images, so if the images are if you find the images somewhere, even in the server or even in the local drive, then you can place the images like this. But using the server URL is not the good practice. Sometimes in case if this image is removed from this server, then it will show you an empty. So what you can do is, you just save the image. I'm saving this. Demo image. So I just saved in my local drive, and so we have a static resources. We have a concept called static resources. So here you can expect some interview questions. So what is a static resource? What are the use case are where we use? A general question, what is a static resource? So it's a static resource is, it's a database area where we can upload image files, CSS files, JS files, so which are used in applications, Visual Force pages, which are used in Visual Force page applications. So which is a database area, which is a Salesforce database area, so where we can upload the images, CSS, JavaScript files, which are used in Visual Force application. So you can upload, we can upload a single file with max of 5 MB. So 5 MB is the limitation. So each file should not exceed more than 5 MB, and there is a storage limit. So just go to storage usage, because this comes under the file limit. So as of now, 20 MB is the limit for this organization. So because this is a developer organization, so it's a completely with more limitations. So as of now, in this developer organization, I can store up to 20 MB files have data, so each file should not exceed more than 5 MB in the size. And I already used 58 KB and I have more space. So what you can do is, so go to the static resource you have, static resource, go to the static resources. So as of now I don't have any files in my static resources because this is a new account we have created. Click on new and you can just click on choose file. So what is your image name? So it's a demo image. So I have selected that and make sure this can be the public so that even public users can access this. So generally make it public by default. So and what is image? So del is the image. Del is the name for this image. So this is a static resource name. Just copy the name. This name is del. So this is a static resource where I just uploaded a file, image file. So which is a .jpeg file. See the size of the image. Now go to your application. So wherever it is needed, so instead of using this, because this is a server direct URL, I don't want to use this server. So because when I use a server URL, sometimes in case the image is deleted from the URL, so you just get an empty logo. So you don't get any logo there. So that's why, so the best practice is always upload the images or CSS files or JavaScript files to your static resources and you directly use. How can you access the static resources? To access the static resources, this is the syntax, just remember. So open, this is a merge field. So exclamatory symbol, dollar, resource dot and your image name del. There is no change in the output. Still I can see the image, which means this static resource directly get an image from the static resources. I mean this dollar resource directly gets the image from the static resource. So dollar resource is a global object which indicates the files from the static resource. In case if your file is with some other name, you have to use the file name. So it is a static resource name. So if it is an image, just use the dollar resource. So this is the way we display the images wherever it is needed. So here the CSS decides the position of the element or color of the element or attributes, so or the direction of the element. So these are all the CSS classes. So using the CSS classes I am able to get the look and feel for my web application. In case if you don't have the CSS, so if you remove the CSS in all areas, let's see how the page looks like. Let me copy the backup. This is an example to the internal CSS and static resource. So this is very easy concept. So let's move to, so just remove the all CSS classes and see how the page looks like. So I would like to remove this CSS and would like to remove this CSS and this one, and this is also CSS. This is inline CSS. I would like to remove everything, and this is also column span is also part of the CSS. Let's keep it. Align equal to center. These are all the CSS classes. So this is also CSS. I'm just removing to show you how the importance of CSS in the application. So I'm just removing everything. So then save it. Check the page. So it's like a normal look and feel. So there is no way we can see this. So it's a bigger image and where we have the left. So in case if you apply the CSS in all places, I'm just adding just Control Z wherever you modify. So it will be undo. So added all the classes and all, then save it. See how looks it is. So this is the importance of CSS. So CSS has more priority, but HTML has a less priority in Visual Force Code, because what are the things we do using HTML we can also do using Visual Force, but not the CSS. CSS is a generic concept. So this concept is supported in Java, .NET, in all other programming platforms. So any questions you have? So we are just done with internal CSS and we move to the external CSS. Before moving to that, so let me know if you have any questions. Okay. So external CSS. So external means the name itself indicates, so which is from the external files. So which means CSS used from the external files is called an external CSS. So use the CSS from the external files. So as of now in my application, so I have the different CSS classes. So these are the different CSS classes. So these are the internal classes. So what I am doing is I'm going to remove all the CSS classes from here. I just removed it, and even I don't need this style attribute. Save it. Now see the design. So see the design. So there is no color for the labels, and there is no header colors, and the image looks bigger. And just removing the CSS classes and place them in a file. So this is a file. This is a separate file. So in case if you use the CSS from the external files, so assume that I am going to save this, saving in my desktop, demo1.css. So my file name is demo1.css. So see, so this is a CSS file. So make sure when you save this, so use .css extension so that this file becomes a CSS file. So you have the three classes: field labels, header, and image CSS. So this is a file you have, and in case if you use the CSS from the external file, then we call it as an external CSS. What are the steps you should follow? So simply, so identify your CSS file. So what is your CSS file? You need to identify. And step 2 is upload the file to static resource. And step 3 is you have to use Apex style sheet tag to call the CSS, to call the external CSS from the static resource. So just remember these steps. One is identify the CSS file. So my file is demo1. I know the file. Upload the file to static resource. So just to do it, go to the Salesforce and go to the static resource. Go to the static resources again. And what is the path for this? Let me add the path also for your reference. Go to setup build, develop and static resources, and a new static resources, and click on new. And this is a external CSS file. Let's say external CSS, del external CSS or something. You can use the name, but remember the names because we use the same names in the code. So make it public and add your file. Choose file. So mine is demo1.css. So here is the demo1. So then make it. So this is the demo1 file. Then save it. So if you want to check the code in the CSS file, just click on view file. So it will show you what are the classes you have. So as of now, this CSS file has three classes. One is field labels and header and image CSS. So go to the application, go to the Visual Force page, and you have to use. So we're just done with the second step also. So this is the second step. So upload the file to static resource. I just uploaded the file. And step 3 is use Apex style sheet. So in your application, so you go to on top of the form, or you can call it anywhere, no problem. I'm using Apex style sheet and use value equal to and use dollar resource because dollar refers static resource. And what is your file name in the static resources? My file name is del external css. Then save it. So this del external css has these three classes. I'm using those classes. So image css is a part of the css file, header is a part of the css file, and field labels are the part of css file. Now see, I could apply the same css but from the external files. In case if I remove this statement, I just remove the statement and save it again. See the difference, there is no CSS applied. So if you want to apply the CSS, so just use the statement. So this is the way. So this is the way we just apply the external CSS in the code. So like this, it depends on your requirement. So it depends on the developer choice. Either you go for inline CSS. If you are more comfortable with the internal CSS, you go it. Or if you are comfortable with external CSS, you can use external CSS. But this external CSS, the advantage is when you use the external CSS, this external CSS can be reused in the entire organization. So inline is a tagline. So for a specific tag, the CSS will be applied. Internal is for the entire Visual Force page. So anywhere in the Visual Force page, if you want to use the CSS, you can just call the CSS classes. External is, it is for entire organization. So let's say if you create another, so for example, if you create another Visual Force page, if you wanted to use an existing CSS classes, you can do that because this is an external CSS. So you just inherit this line, you just add the line, and wherever you need, so just to call these methods. So let's say there is another application, another Visual Force page where you have the images and would like to apply the same CSS, then you do it. So this is reusable for entire organization, organizational specific. Internal is Visual Force page level specific. Inline is it is a tagline. So just tagline applies the CSS. This is the code. And step 1, create a file. Create a file with the following CSS classes and make sure the extension is .css. So what is the code I have? So this is the code. Just copy and use. So these are the three classes. And what is the step 2? Upload the file to static resource with the file name. What is the file name I'm using? so which is del external CSS. And step 3 is call the external CSS using the following statement. So this is a statement, and the entire code is and this is an entire code. So this is a entire Visual Force base code for external CSS. So any questions you have?